am I right in saying that you have a young horse who is a little bit of a potential superstar called Cooley HHS Calmaria, and that Equilume has made a real difference in terms of finding the key to unlock some of her talents?
Yeah, she's an interesting mare. I always say she's probably one of the trickiest horses I've ever had and the most talented. She's quite quirky and she's quite hot, and she's got a lot of opinions. And it was interesting when I first met Michael at Equilume, we just put one of the masks on her, and we put the mask on her and she immediately put her head to the floor, which was the weirdest thing. So we started using that regularly on her and at the shows and everything, and she's definitely turned the corner, almost instantly settled more as a horse and become more trainable.
Welcome to the Equiratings Eventing podcast, and listeners, an Equilume special for you. Now, today's preview show is all about the fork at Tryon because we are heading up to a big full season over in the US, and there are plenty of horses and riders who are looking to really make their mark. We're going to talk about a few of them in this field as well, I am sure. But I'm delighted to welcome back to the show one of my favourite US partners in crime, Jimmie Schramm. How are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm great.
It is lovely to have you back on the show, and I'm looking forward to getting your take on Tryon as well. First of all, set the scene for us, because Tryon, where the event is held this weekend, it was the venue for the World Equestrian Games back in 2018. So lots of people kind of were very familiar with it around that time, particularly if they're not US based, but it is one of, I think, the most impressive venues that there is in the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a beautiful spot, and I think for a lot of competitors, it's a really good place to practice being in a big atmosphere, because the main ring where they do the dressage and the show jumping is quite electric. It's like a big full stadium, and I think actually at this event, a lot of times they try and show jump in the evening, which is pretty fun under the lights. So as far as like young horses or horses that are maybe going to a big fall 3-day, it's a really good place to practice that and practice putting your horse in a bit of atmosphere and seeing what you've got. The cross country is beautiful. It's designed by Mark Phillips, and it's on an old golf course, which is kind of funny, but it works. And the other thing that's cool about this, because it was on a golf course, it's got really good drainage. Like there's drainage throughout the whole thing, so it can handle a good bit of rain. So it's a really fun venue. There's tons to do, lots of restaurants. It's actually one of my favorite places to go. I'm kind of bummed I'm not going this year.
I always think it's one of those places that really sells the sport to people kind of outside of eventing and outside of that bubble. It just makes it really attractive, really fun, really kind of sexy, and hopefully generates a real interest into it as well. Can I ask, because I am very British, listeners, as we all know, and I love to talk about the weather, but for anybody that isn't US based, that isn't familiar with the kind of conditions that you might get at this time of year in Tryon, what would they be like?
Oh gosh. Honestly, this is such a torrential time of year because you can kind of get a little bit of anything. I know I saw some people came in yesterday and it looked like they had a good bit of rain. So at least the footing should be good. But it could be hot, it could be cool, it could be a little bit of anything. I think right now we're, sort of in the middle of summer, and North Carolina would be a little bit more south, so it could be warm, but I think actually the weather should be nice, and hopefully the rain will hold off for the rest of the weekend so they can have a good dry event.
Fingers crossed. Let's talk about a few of the big names and the key contenders, because top of the Equiratings Prediction Centre with over a 20% win chance. Actually, he's 21%. Boyd Martin and Commando 3. Boyd also has Miss Lulu herself in the field. Commando 3, though, is a really, really exciting horse for him. Was originally produced by Louise Romaika over in Sweden, and a relatively new addition to his string. I think he only took him on at the start of this year.
Love this horse.
And they've never been out of the top 10. They've had 3 runs internationally, been 7th, 3rd and 5th, including on the podium at a 4-star long earlier on this year. This feels like actually Boyd has got a real kind of second wave coming through, Jimmie, behind the likes of, Setzeleg and On Cue, who've really kind of led his string for so long.
Yeah, I think that Boyd has been watching his mate Philip for a long time, and they create kind of waves, like you said, of strings of horses, and especially coming into maybe a year or two before a championship, you'll see these guys kind of pulling in their next 3 and 4-star type horses to their string so that they have plenty of backups going into a championship. This horse is spectacular. I think he really loves it and really enjoys riding it. And I think it's a real special horse for him for the future. And I'm really excited to see what happens with it. I think you and I actually spoke about this horse the last time I was on this podcast, and it was like his first event out on Earth.
Yeah, Carolina preview show back in March. Yeah. That was it.
Yeah, and I'm thrilled that he has it, and it's a pretty special horse. So it should be fun to kind of see where this goes and how it goes this weekend. I'm not sure what his fall plans are for it. I have no idea, like if Maryland is on the cards or what. I haven't actually gotten to talk to him about it, but we'll see where it goes.
So the horse, I'm just going to double check. I'm pretty certain the horse is 5-star qualified. It is 5-star qualified. I have a feeling that this is Maryland bound. So, I mean, that is really exciting for him. And I think the interesting bit for me is a little bit around where they can land their dressage score. They've been as low as 25.8 at Carolina earlier on this year, which was a low scoring day. And then they were 34.1 last time out in Bromont. So a little bit of variation within their dressage marks. But if they could kind of start building that consistently down towards the 30 territory, then that would be very, very good. And actually the horse has had some really, really smart scores with Louise on board over in Europe, and kind of been as low as 20, I think, even at the 2-star level. So, the step up from 3-star to 4-star, always quite a big one. Flying changes come in, and there's that sort of different level of intensity. And the horse relatively young still, only a 10-year-old. So just one to watch as to where their dressage might land.
Yeah, and I think he's not had the horse very long, and I think it's easy to kind of just assume that these relationships with the horse and rider can just come together quickly, but it takes time. It takes time to kind of feel out what these horses are going to be like in the ring, that the horses begin to trust the rider and vice versa. I think it just takes a little bit of time, but I would think by the end of this year or beginning of next year, they'll have that pretty dialed in.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, Boyd is a very, very, very busy chap and has had lots and lots and lots of other commitments over the last sort of few months in particular, and being over to Burley and everything else. I would say that actually he is still leading the US rider rankings. So I know he's got Liz Halliday-Sharp and Tammy Smith hot on his heels. And I think I've said previously, I don't think I'd want to be chased down by those two, because they're coming for you. But he's a competitive chap, and I'm sure that is on his radar to kind of keep building those points out before the end of the season. Miss Lulu herself is another 10-year-old, very sort of similar profile in so much as only recently stepped up to the 4-star level, kind of has only actually done 1 4-star short and 1 4-star long, but was 6th in the 4-star long this spring. And again, Boyd just ticking off another Olympic qualifying result with that horse, because it's important to remember that actually all of those horses that are, potentially in contention for team selection, they've got to be qualified as well. So yes, they need 4-star short and that part of the qualification, but the big one that most people need to tick off is a 4-star long MER or a 5-star long MER, which they will be getting at some point. It's valid for the whole of this calendar year, so from the 1st of January this year. And then I think they've got until about June 2024 to have got it. But actually, if they can get it in 2023, it just means that their plans for 2024 are not led by trying to tick a qualifying box.
Right. helps them kind of sit a little bit prettier for the following year and not feel so stressed.
Exactly. Less pressure. Miss Lulu herself, as I say, very kind of nice profile, having stepped up the levels, wouldn't be overly experienced at all. This will only be, I think, her 7th international run with Boyd and maybe her 10th overall. So very, very good show jumper is the thing that stands out for me with her. Has actually only rolled 1 pole in 9 international competitions. So definitely one to look out for if that jumping is under lights. She could be pulling herself up the leaderboard. So Boyd is favourite with Commando 3. Miss Lulu herself a little bit further down the prediction centre. I think a 10% win chance. Hot on Boyd's heels though, Doug Payne actually has, I think, 3 rides in the 4-star here. He has Quiberon, Camarillo, and the favourite of them, the most experienced of them certainly as well, Quantum Leap, 13% win chance. I would imagine the plan is again Maryland, Jimmie. But I mean, we're speculating wildly, but I love a bit of speculation.
Yeah, I would imagine as well. This horse is getting more and more experienced now, and I know that Doug and Jess really love this horse. I almost feel like they might have bred it or they've had it since it was a very, very young horse. So they've produced it and brought it to this level. So I think it's a really special horse for the two of them as well. But I think that Doug is anxious to get that pink coat back on again. So, I would imagine he'll probably try and get to Maryland at the end of this year and have a really good run there, and then see where he sits for next year.
This horse, I was just looking, he's only a 12-year-old. He feels like he's been around for quite a long time, but actually he's been top 10 at Kentucky this year. He was top 10 at Maryland last year. He was 3rd at Kentucky back in 2022. He was top 10 at Maryland back in sort of the end of 2021 as well. So in his last 4 5-stars, he's been inside the top 10. He is super, super consistent, very good cross country, generally speaking, a very good jumper. And Doug actually has been, I was going to say moonlighting as a jumper, but I don't think there's much moonlighting about it. I think he's pretty competitive in the jumping fields, and actually he hasn't done a huge amount of eventing over the last few months. I think his last international was actually in May in the eventing world, but he's been popping around sort of meter 50s on the regular.
Yeah, I actually talked to Jess, his wife, about this kind of end of last year. I think they're not slowly making a full switch, but I think they want to at least have half and half or even a few more jumpers than eventers moving forward. I think it's just a little bit easier lifestyle for them, especially with their kids. And I think that they really like, Jess actually has a show jumping background originally as well from when she was younger, and then she switched into eventing. So I think it's somewhere where they're both very comfortable. So I think it's easy for them to be pretty fluid between the two, between eventing and jumping.
Definitely. And actually, as we've seen with plenty of other riders, Gemma Stevens, and there's plenty of other big names, Michael Young being one, that they, jumping at a very high level actually can really help you with that jumping in the eventing phase as well. Philip Dutton, first of all, happy birthday, Big Phil, turned 60. Still going strong, and everybody is still he's as formidable as ever on the competition circuit and has a great team of horses. One of which that he has here, actually, he's 3rd on the prediction centre. I'm so excited to see this horse, and I am very, very much I've kind of been following their progress over the last kind of 12 months or so, because only an 8-year-old, so pretty inexperienced, but it is a horse called Denham, and he was top 10 with the horse last year at Le Lion in the 7-year-old World Championships, finished on his dressage score of 26.3, has been lightly campaigned this year, but has done 1 4-star short and now steps up again this time. And I just think all of the ingredients, this horse, to go all the way to the top. I would be interested as to whether he's going to press all of the go buttons this weekend. Depends on what the big picture would be. My guess is a 4 long somewhere, but no mistake, this is one that we should be really excited about.
Yeah, Philip really, really rates this horse. I remember when he first got it, listening to him talk about it and how excited he was, and he thinks it's one of the best horses he's ever had. So he really loves it. I mean, I think it is obviously still pretty young, especially to be at this level. So, I think we'll see a lot of change in the horse over the next couple of years, as it gets just more confident and understands the job a bit better, stronger, fitter, all the things. But, Philip doesn't normally go too slow. You know what I mean? Like, normally such a fast competitor anyway, cross country. So, I mean, I don't know if he'll be blazing for the time, but I don't think he'll hang around either. I think he tries to practice with them and make sure that they know how to go fast and are comfortable there. So we'll see what he does. But it's obviously a very exciting horse, and he just really, really loves it. He talks really highly about it.
He really does. Okay, who else is there? Jacob Fletcher, Fabian. Let's talk about him for a second, Jimmie.
This horse is the most beautiful horse on the planet. Like, I kind of stick him up there next to Chin Tonic as far as sexy horses go. It's so, so beautiful. And unfortunately, I don't get to see Jacob all that much because he lives in Florida, so he kind of does the lower half of the country circuit. But I know this horse is very capable of doing a very good test, and Jacob, is very fast cross country. I don't know its show jumping record myself all that well. You might have a better insight into that as to how well it jumps. But I would imagine it's atop of this leaderboard, so it must not jump too bad.
Yeah, I mean, he's so the horse was originally produced actually by Millie Dumas up to 4-star level over in England. Jacob's had the rides since start of last season, I think, certainly internationally. Jumping wise, can have rails, a bit of four-faultitis, but has also jumped clear in his last two. So, definitely one to watch. One of only, listeners, 3 horses in the fields that have won at this level previously. He's actually won at this level previously twice, or at the 4-star level, so that includes 4-star long. The other 2 would be Van der Mask and Ronald Zabala. Ronald Zabala Goatshall, and also SSH Playboy, and Julie Wolfert, who've also won at this level previously, but nobody else has in the field. So, interesting one.
Like
actually,
I said, he's very fast cross country, so I think that's where he kind of comes in, especially at these shorts, last at the end of the competition, and tries to make the time.
Well, watch out for him. Julie Wolfert, who we've just talked about, actually, let's just take a look, because SSH Playboy has won at the level previously, an 11-year-old, and they won last time out internationally when they last completed, which was actually at Tryon back in November of last year. They had a good double clear, picked up a good number of time penalties cross country, but still they've won at the 3-star level previously as well. And SSH Playboy actually was originally brought out by Camilla Spears over in Ireland. So definitely one to keep an eye on. Anybody else that catches your eye as one to watch?
If you want to watch a really good cross-country horse, that Cooley Flight of Ryan Woods is a really cool horse going cross-country. It's also a big green at the level. Like, it's slowly figuring itself out, as it gets going, but it's very fun to watch cross country. And then obviously my other favorite horse to watch is Cornelia's that Daytona Beach. She's pretty spectacular as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cornelia now riding under her married name. So Cornelia Fletcher as opposed to Cornelia Dorr, which is very exciting for her and Jacob. And I have to admit, having a bit of a horse crush on Daytona Beach. I remember watching her around Burley last year, and she's just a bit of a machine, isn't she? She's kind of got her own way of going. She's feisty. She loves it. She's exuberant. And I have a bit of a soft spot for a mare that's got a real kind of character and sort of grit, determination, will to win feeling going on. So
I remember being at a horse trial many years ago when she had this horse, and it was a bit younger, and I mean, she was just being wild. I think she'd like been wild in the dressage and came out and was like jumping around. And Dom, of course, who obviously loves a spicy mare as well, comes up to Cornelia and he's like, well, you know, if you want to sell that one, she's like, no way. No way. You know,
not going to happen. Nice try, Dom, but no.
But I'm so happy they've gotten to that 5-star level and are just crushing it. It's really exciting for her. And it's a beautiful horse to watch. It's definitely one of my favorites. I know she's still got like some kinks to iron out at the 5-star level, but it's still a pretty fun horse to watch, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, imagine they are also Maryland bound in the coming weeks, I would think. Tim Burke actually has Monbeg Libertine, which looks like a really nice young horse for him. And then the last one I was going to mention actually is Backy Rouge and Lindsay Traisnell, who have had some really solid results at the 4-star level and have been getting some kind of picking up some just good solid top 10s, very experienced at this level now. They were actually runners up at Bromont in the long format 4-star last year. They were 4th there again this year. For Canada, this is a horse that actually could well just need to be on the radar for those Pan American Games. And of course, we're heading into the Olympics next year as well. So just look out for them again. I'm sure they'll be looking for a good result this weekend. Jimmie, put you on the spot. Who wins?
I'm going to go with my boy Boyd Martin and Commando. I'm going to stick to the numbers on this one.
I am going to say I absolutely love Commando 3, but I'm sticking, I think Quantum Leap, Doug Payne are building up to a big result at Maryland. They can be fast. They can obviously show jump. If they can get in pretty low 30s in the dressage. I don't think we're going to see the dressage records break this weekend. I think the best dressage we've seen is a 25.7 maybe from Tammy Smith, Solagua, California at Tryon, but in this 4-star short. So I don't think we're going to see that challenged, but I think if Doug starts in the mix, he's going to finish in the mix. So Quantum Leap.
I definitely think that's possible. I mean, and to be honest with you, Phil could come in there and wipe them both out.
Yeah, he could. He could. Watch this space. Jimmie, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very, very much for joining us. And when it's all done and dusted next week, maybe you'll come back and we can chat through exactly how it did unfold.
Absolutely. I'd love to. It was great talking with you. And I can't wait to come back.
We'll look forward to it. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed that little insight into the Fork at Tryon this weekend. Big couple of months coming up in US eventing, and we're going to have all the behind the scenes coverage for you on the Inside Maryland series, which is going to be kicking off very, very shortly. For now, though, that is all we've got time for, and we'll be back very soon with more. Thanks for listening.